Fabulous. And so I love that there's so many people here already. This is great. We are going to start at 1800 every week on Tuesday and Thursday on time. So let's go back over the structure of the course again to remind everyone, and for those that weren't here on Tuesday, this is going to be a very different course than anything you've ever experienced before, probably. And that's because for two reasons. One, because of COVID, everything is going to be online. And two, this topic of universal design is, for most computer science students, is a very different and new way of thinking about creating technology. And so we're going to be approaching this course with very different approaches than what a traditional computer science class would be. Again, we're going to meet twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday on Zoom. At 1800, from 1800 to 1900. That's a hard start and a hard stop. So 1800 we begin, 1900 we end. Whatever we can't finish by 1900, we'll pick up in the next class. For document storage and submitting your assignments, we're using Dropbox. If you do not yet have access to our shared Dropbox folder, you need to let me know as soon as possible so that I can make that happen. For communications, we're using WhatsApp and email. If you do not have my email address or you have not been added to the WhatsApp group, you need to let me know as soon as possible so I can add you. We will be recording all the classes, and this is for you to be able to refer to afterwards. So if you can't quite remember what I said, or if you're like, oh, Anthony spoke way too fast during that one piece, and you want to go back and take a listen, you can. We're still deciding whether or not we will post them in audio or audio and video form. I want to make it as multimodal, multi-format as possible. So I'll probably post both audio and video, but I'll just create a document and post a link so you can download either file as you see fit. So that way it doesn't hose up everybody's Dropbox space. I think that's probably the better way to do it, because I have plenty of space on my Dropbox, so it's easier for me to kind of just send you a link and then you can download and then delete as you see fit. The first class brief, so your assignments are in the forms of class briefs. There will be 4 class briefs. Your first class brief is already on Dropbox. It basically consists of a series of videos and readings, and then a couple of video presentations or video lectures, and then an assignment. An assignment's in 3 or maybe 4 parts. I can't remember exactly how long. It should take you about 5 hours to complete the whole thing. It may take some people longer, depending on how proficient you are in English. It may take some people longer because they really like and think this is interesting and they want to watch the videos maybe twice. That's okay. However long it takes, that's how long it takes. But I estimate around 5 hours when I'm writing the assignment or writing the class brief. Each class brief for each week will be due on Sunday, and I'll try to have the next week's class brief ready on Monday. The Sunday due date is a soft deadline, so it's not mandatory that you submit it on Sunday, but I need all of the class briefs, all 4 of them, submitted by July 1st. That's what I'm going to grade you on. So if you want to wait until June 30th and do all 4 class briefs then, that's your decision. I would recommend against it because you will probably not get a good grade. Sorry, Esmeralda, I had to mute you there. I would recommend trying to keep up each week and submit the class brief on Sunday. Most of the assignments are going to be fairly easy to manage in terms of your time. You're just going to have to work on it throughout the week. All right, that's all I have for our review. Now, I would like for us to have a sort of roundtable check-in, and I'm going to explain how we're going to do that here in a minute. But the basic premise is that I need to know what sort of progress you've been making, and I need to understand what you're getting out of the assignment, and I need to understand how I can make things a little bit better for you. And I need you to be very open and provide feedback in whatever way you want to. So what I've done is I've created a few questions on Google Slides, and I'm going to share my screen now. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great. And can you only see the screen with the slides on it, or are you seeing the slides and the questions?
Only slides. Yeah, with a
Beautiful.
question.
Beautiful, but it shows the URL about with the question.
Yes.
Great. I'm going to post that same URL in our chat so that you can access that URL. And I just want you to go ahead and respond to that first question there. How far have you made it in that first class brief? I would really appreciate as many people as possible to respond to that so that I can help understand kind of where you've gotten. And it could be that you've not done anything, and that's okay. Then just go to that URL, slides.app.goo.gl/KIECD, and just say, Anthony, I've done nothing. And that's cool. It'll be completely anonymous. I won't know who said that. Or if you've gotten halfway through, then, oh, Anthony, I finished the videos, but I haven't done the reading yet. Does that make sense? Am I clear?
Yes.
Great. So if I could ask everybody to do that now, that would be wonderful. I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to put in your input.
Anthony?
Yes. Yes, Manuel.
I don't know any question on that URL.
Yeah?
Yes, I'm getting an empty slide either.
Really? Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to do this. How I can. Did you use the link that I put in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I had the link wrong. So let me type it again. No, it looks like it's the same link. I've already gotten a couple of people who've been able to submit questions. So hopefully maybe you refresh, it might work. Please let me know if you're having any problems because this is just an experiment. I just want to see if this will work.
It's working for me now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dario. It should just be any web browser should work if you just throw that URL into the web browser.
Yes, Anthony?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry I came late for the lesson.
It's okay.
But yeah, I didn't understand what is the task now.
Can you go to the URL that's on the slide on the screen? And can you answer the question that's on the screen?
Just to answer the question, wasn't it?
Yes, I want you to answer the question. Sorry, not ask a question. Can you all still see the screen? Okay, so I'm just going to respond to a couple of the first people who've already answered the question. So it looks like most of you have been able to watch the videos, which is great. And it doesn't seem like anybody's had any problems with the videos and that you're making your way through the report. I know the report is long. I wrote it, so I know exactly how long it is. So I think that it's still worth reading it and it's still worth going through it because that provides the framework for the whole course. So please give that your attention. Yeah, it seems like people are finishing the podcasts. They're working on their article. In the middle of reading. 4 videos, it made it clear. Okay, so somebody commented that it made it clear about what universal design is. Okay, great. All right, so we'll stop this question and we'll go to the next one now because I want you to, I want to continue to get your input here. So the next question is, what questions do you have about class brief 1? So throw anything that you might need to know about class brief 1 into the URL now. And if I could just remind everyone to please put your microphones on mute so we don't get a lot of background noise. Okay, it looks like some people have finished the first draft of the exercise. That's great. Right now we're looking for questions. Class brief 1. Great. Just keep plugging in your questions that you might have so that I can get a better understanding for how to answer you. Okay, some of you say no questions. Okay, here's a question. So how can we make universal design part of more comprehensive technology solutions, such as cell phones that support only USSD technology? That's a really, really great question. And I'm not sure. I think that's for us to kind of figure out. The good news is this is a very, very cutting edge field. The idea behind universal design started in the 90s, but nobody started using it for ICT, for technology, until maybe the last 5 or 10 years. So we're really not sure yet how to apply universal design to some fundamental technology infrastructure issues. We know kind of how the principles can guide us when we're deploying large technology infrastructure support, but we don't know specifically about how we can understand something like a cell phone, how that could be usable for everybody. And then we're talking about people from across all of human diversity. So it's a really important question, and I'm sorry, the answer is to that, we don't know. Okay, let's see. Another question is, how are our beliefs related to universal design? So the exercise class we're on was on helping you connect what you care about with this idea of universal design. So I think anybody that believes in fundamental issues around equality, human diversity, they'll naturally gravitate to universal design. I'm sorry, I just got the message that something's wrong with my mic. How is that? Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dario, for that input. So your values and how they relate to universal design is up to you because it's individual. But I think that universal design has the power to resonate with almost anyone. And it's important for us as individuals and as a class to understand what that relationship is between what you care about and what universal design is. So that was the kind of the basic premise behind the class brief 1. Another question, what is the difference between universal design and inclusive design? And why is universal design difficult to apply in a digital space? Oh my gosh, that's like the fundamental question about why we're here today. Well, the second part is. The first part's easy. Universal design and inclusive design are practically synonyms. So there's many different terms that have been used over the years since really the 1970s that kind of mean the same thing. There's barrier-free design, there's universally accessible design, there's design for all, there's inclusive design, and there's universal design. Now, the reason why this course focuses on universal design is because that's the name that the United Nations has given to this idea that we should be creating technology for everyone. So we use the UN as kind of our compass to tell us what's the right terminology to use here. Now, there's not agreement on what the right terminology should be. So you'll find people using universal design, inclusive design, accessible design, a whole bunch of different terminology. This course uses universal design because it is aligned with the way the UN approaches it. And then the second part of that question, why is universal design difficult to apply in the digital space? There's 2 reasons. 1, there are many things that can lead to universal design. So there are many different kinds of inputs that can result in something that is universally designed. And something that is universally designed can be universally designed in many, many different ways. So there's a problem where there's an almost infinite number of inputs and an almost infinite number of possible outputs. And because of that, it's a very complex issue, because you can't say that 1 + 1 = 2. That's a simple math problem. And if we knew that about universal design, the problem would be solved. I wouldn't have a job and you guys wouldn't be here in this class. But because this problem is more like x + y = z, and we're not sure how many x's there are, how many y's there are, and how many z's there are, that's why I've dedicated my career and why we're here today to talk about these issues. So it's not a straight answer because there's not a straight answer. Let's see here. Can you explain more about beliefs I have to think for ICT only? Okay, so your belief is something that motivates you, something that you care about, something that you value, okay? So your belief could be something like, I believe technology can enable people to do amazing things, right? Or I believe that education can really help people who have no opportunities get opportunities for jobs and for a good life. That's what I mean when I say beliefs. I want you to get into what matters to you. What are your values? I hope that explains it. If it doesn't, ask a follow-up question. Next question, our beliefs must be related to universal design. No, they don't have to be related to universal design. What I want you to do with the assignment is to think about whether and how your beliefs might relate to universal design. You might end up with a whole bunch of beliefs and a whole bunch of ideas about universal design, and you're going to look at them and say, nothing matches, and that's okay. And I want you to tell me about that. Because if you write and say, nothing matches, Anthony, all of these things are very, very different, and I don't, none of the things I care about are what universal design is about. And then you show me your lists and I can see things that are connected, then I'm going to say, you didn't do your assignment very well. So you have to think critically about how you feel, what you care about, and what universal design is, and see where there are connections. You don't have to make connections, but I need you to look at where their connections could possibly be. Another question, in what area this concept started? Okay, yes, good question. Universal design has been applied to many different areas. It's been applied to the way we make laws and policies. It's been applied to education. It's been applied to buildings and architecture, and it's been applied to ICT. I don't know of any other ways it's been applied. Those four are basically it that I know about. It started in architecture. And that's what's really difficult about universal design, is because we're taking an idea that began about our buildings and sidewalks and streets, and we're trying to think about how can we take that same idea and apply it to technology. And that's why it's a very complicated and difficult issue. All right, let's see, what other questions? I would like to know more about examples between universal design and beliefs. All right, so I believe, this is me saying this, I believe that everyone should have an equal opportunity to succeed in life. Okay, that's one of my core beliefs. That's something that I really, really care about, is other people having opportunities in the same way that I've had opportunities in my life. That's a belief. Now, one of the ideas behind universal design is that everyone should use technology equally. All right, so everyone has the equal opportunity to use technology. So I would say that these two beliefs are very, very strongly linked. Okay, so that's my example, but I want you to find examples for you. Last year when I taught this course, one of my students said, Anthony, I believe in peace and ending war. And I said, I'm not sure how that can be connected to universal design. And then she explained it to me and she said, Anthony, universal design, one of the main ideas is about people from different groups participating in how technology is created. And she said, if we can do that, then we can bring people in to have a discussion about the really complicated issues around war and peace. And I said, yes, that's brilliant. And I still struggle to make that connection, but she saw it and she was able to explain it to me. And that's what I want you guys to do. Some of my beliefs have more than 15 words. Is it mandatory that all beliefs have 15 words maximum? Yes. I wrote the number 15. When I give you a word count, it's for a very specific reason. All right. And it's not because I don't want to read your beautiful writing. It's because it forces you to think in a very compact way. It forces you to think in a way that is being very careful about each word you choose around universal and how we approach these ideas. The work that we're doing is complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. We can describe it in a way that's simple. Your beliefs are complicated. My beliefs are complicated, but we can also describe them simply. How to employ, wow, there's a lot of questions. You guys are amazing. How to employ universal design to make web technology for everyone and inclusive. All right, that's an easy question. That's an easy question because there's an easy answer. And I haven't given you this information yet, so don't be upset that, oh, I didn't know this. There is a standard. There's an international standard called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's called WCAG, W-C-A-G, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Is my microphone okay?
Yes.
Great. If you look up that group with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that'll provide very technical specifications around the web when it comes to universal design. Now, it's important to make a distinction here. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, they take care of some people. Like some people will now have access to websites that they wouldn't normally have access to them. But it's not universal design in the sense that everyone can have access to those websites. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines typically focus on people with sensory disabilities, so people who have visual impairments or hearing impairments or mobility impairments. They do not do a very good job of dealing with accessibility for websites for people with intellectual disabilities or people with what are called psychosocial disabilities. So a psychosocial disability is things like bipolar disorder, Asperger's, autism. Those are psychosocial disabilities. Intellectual disabilities are things like if you have what's called a traumatic brain injury. So if you get in a car accident and you hit your head and you have a concussion, that's an intellectual disability. If you have a learning disability like dyslexia, so when you're reading, the letters can get mixed up and it makes reading different print styles very difficult. That's a learning disability. So the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, does very well for people with sensory disabilities, people with mobility disabilities, and people with, yes, but not very well for intellectual disabilities or psychosocial disabilities. And that doesn't include everyone because disability is only one aspect of universal design. Universal design is also about somebody's gender. It's also about their, whether they're rich or poor, whether they live in poverty or wealth. It's about their location. Where do they live in the world? It's about all different aspects of what makes a person. And the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines deal with one part of universal design, which is disability, and not even all disabilities. Important to make that distinction. I know that was a long answer, but yeah. All right, wow, we could do this all day. Is universal design for ICT already being encouraged or enforced with concrete laws or rights outside Europe and the USA? All right, great question. In the US, there has been a law for, it's not universal design, it's accessibility. So these two ideas are a little bit different. And I'm sorry, I'm going to mute somebody. There we go. Universal design and accessibility are a little bit different. So accessibility usually focuses on disability, and universal design is about everybody. So whether you're disabled or not, whether you're young or old, whether you're a man, woman, whether you're a sexual minority, whether you're a racial or ethnic minority, language use, national origin, it's everybody. Accessibility is typically for disability. So in the US, there's been a law about accessibility since the 90s. In the early 2000s, the UN had a human rights treaty called the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, which makes it a requirement for all countries that have signed that law to to do research and implement universal design in products and services. That's a very simple way of putting it, and I'm sorry if it's still confusing. But the basic idea here is that countries like Mozambique, who have signed the law, Norway has signed the law, and many, many, many other countries around the world, they have an obligation, their governments have an obligation to basically work on universal design. In Norway, where I live, there is a law, a national law, that says that all businesses in Norway, all government agencies, all nonprofit organizations, every organization has to ensure the universal design of technology. Now, the government in Norway enacted this law without thinking very much about it because they didn't realize that universal design is very, very difficult and there's a lot of things we don't know about it. So what they did after they made that law is they made some regulations that said, well, here, the law is universal design, but the regulations say you have to make your websites accessible, for example. And they made that according to the WCAG WCAG standard. So it's a very complicated legal terrain, but it's a good question. And I'm sorry that it went on a little bit long, but I think that kind of gets the main points across. Next question. I was talking to some colleagues about universal design, and some said that it is a kind of utopic for our context. What is your point of view on this matter? I think universal design is two things. One, it is about having an idea of the direction that we want society to go. So it's not always going to be about concrete processes. There's a broader idea behind universal design, which is just like a mission statement. It's like, that's something we all agree on is important. Now, there's another set of ideas behind universal design, which are all about practices. And so some of those practices are things like the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, like I already mentioned, but there's other practices like participation in design processes and how we can enable people with disabilities and people from other marginalized communities to participate in technology design. I think that's a very important component of universal design, and it's a very real, practical aspect of universal design. So it's a really good question. It's not a utopia only. It's a compass. It's a way of getting everybody to point in the same direction, and it's a bunch of practices that we will learn. We will continue to evolve and continue to learn. So in that sense, it's really similar to human rights. When we talk about all these wonderful human rights that the UN does and that, you know, we all are champions of human rights, they're not practices. They're just ideals that everybody should be treated fairly, that everybody should be treated equally, that everybody should have equal rights. These sort of things are just ideas. How we put those ideas into practice is a huge challenge, and it's a complicated challenge. And every country around the world struggles with human rights and certainly with universal design. There's no country on earth that has either of those topics figured out. So I don't want you to pretend like, oh, Norway, everything is perfect. It's definitely not. I can give you a whole 9-hour lecture about how Norway isn't universally designed. All right, next, we got 2 more questions and then I'm going to cut the questions. This was very, very fruitful. As I realize, many of the aspects recommended in universal design take into account physical barriers or visual notable limitations. Does universal design consider people's behavioral issues? Yes, it does. Universal design is anchored in a field of research called human-computer interaction. And this is all about the psychology behind humans' behavior when it comes to technology. And so if you're interested in this field, then I would really recommend that you do some searches on Google, and especially on Google Scholar, for human-computer interaction. There's a lot of really great research, and a lot of it is openly available. It's open access, that you can learn about the psychology and behavioral aspects of universal design, for example. We're going to be getting into a little bit about that, but we're not going to go into that in depth. The work that we're going to be doing around universal design is going to be a little bit theoretical, and then it's going to be a lot of practical applications. So next week's class brief is going to be all about understanding the problem related to universal design. And there are many, many problems. The third class brief is going to be all about inventing new solutions. And then the fourth class brief is going to be all about taking those solutions and trying to put them into practice. So we're not going to be necessarily taking something that's already been done and redoing it. It's going to be our job in this class to create something new, to create something that's never been created before, whether that's there in Mozambique, here in Norway, or anywhere else in the world. So one question, could I do another explanation of deliverable 1 at the end of class? I will do my best to run through it very, very quickly, but I see we're already running out of time, so I don't want to take too much time to just review the class brief. But if anybody has questions about the class brief, specific questions, I would love to answer those now. Another question, last question, is it still considered universal design if it doesn't cover all the known disabilities? Another great question. So disability as an idea, as an identity, is an evolving concept. It changes every year. What we knew, what we thought about disability when I was a kid is a very different thing than what we think about disability now. For example, people who are on the autistic spectrum, people who have autism, they, in the 90s, there was no such thing as autism. They just had maybe some sort of intellectual disability, or they were just antisocial. There was no such thing as autism, so they didn't know that it was a disability. Now we know that autism is a disability. So what we know of when it comes to disability is going to change as we go forward. So universal design should certainly cover as many as possible. We should be covering as many people as possible. But we always have to recognize that there's going to be limitations to that, and that we're not necessarily going to be able to cover everyone all the time in all situations. I have an intellectual disability whenever I travel back home to the United States. It's a temporary intellectual disability, but when I get jet lag, I can't think the way I think when I don't have jet lag. So that lack of sleep, that sleep deprivation that comes with jet lag, it makes me process things slower, and it makes it harder for me to understand things for maybe a day or two. And then I catch up with my sleep, and I no longer have an intellectual disability. So it's a temporary disability, but it's a disability. And we all will have that at some point in our life, whether you get a broken arm or a broken leg, or whether you get old enough and you end up with Alzheimer's or dementia, or any kind of other age-related disabilities. All right, I lied. One last question. Does there have any difference in similarity between universal design and user experience design when it comes to ICT? Yes, there's a big difference. So there's user experience design, and there's another idea called user-centered design. Focuses the design process on the human being, on the user. And that's really important. That's one of the kind of fundamental aspects of universal design. But if I do something that's user-centered design and all the users are like me, we're never going to get to universal design, because people like me don't have any problems using technology. I use technology all the time, and albeit sometimes I have technical difficulties, but for the most part, I can use technology very easily. But for someone who's older, someone who has a disability, someone who experiences other sorts of barriers when it comes to accessing or using technology, if they're not part of that user group, then it's not going to be universally designed. So when it comes to user experience design or user-centered design, one of my former students says, it's only as good as who is the user at the center. And if you put someone like me at the center of a user-centered design process, it's never going to get universally designed. The universal design is all about enabling people who would not normally have access to or use of technology, enabling them to be able to use it and access it on an equal basis with others. Good. Oh, such great questions. All right, let's see if I want to do this last question. I wanted to see how many. All right. Let's go for a few more minutes. I'm going to ask you to please answer the next question. What questions do you have about the class? I just want to get you quick, a few kind of general questions. Anthony, I don't understand this. I don't understand this. Can you give us more clarity about that or the other thing? And if you want to ask more questions about universal design, then do it. I'm loving this. I hope you're getting something out of this as well. Okay, so I got another question about universal design here. This is fab. What relationship exists between universal design and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs? I'm sure you've heard of these before. I'll put the name of it in the chat in case there's anybody who hasn't heard of this. If you look up the Sustainable Development Goals, there's 17 of them. They deal with all different aspects of society, everything from poverty to gender equality, to employment, to peace, climate change, everything. So I think the question is about what's the relationship between universal design and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. I actually did, I've done 4 talks now at the UN in Geneva about how we can use universal design to help us achieve these Sustainable Development Goals. And there's a lot of really key goals that we can use universal design to support. So the goal on education, universal design works very well with education. It's all about ensuring that everybody who wants to have access to education is able to do that using technology. Health, it's all about enabling people to have to exercise their right to health, to have access to healthcare using technology. There's one about employment. It's all about the same thing, using technology to enable people to have employment, everyone. Great. So Dario just let us know that we had a separate module on ICT for development. Beautiful. So universal design and ICT for D work very well together. You can use universal design to ensure that all the ICT for D stuff is done in a way that everyone can benefit from that. Not just people who are in privileged positions, but people who live on the very fringe of society, people who are excluded from society. Okay. Faisal asks, give me universal design principles in simple words. There's 4 of them. Social equality. Universal design is all about enabling people to have equal chances of using technology. 2, diversity. It's all about making sure that technology works for the diversity of the human population. 3, this is 2 parts, accessibility and usability. It's about ensuring that people have access to and can use technology. So access and use are 2 different things, but they're linked together. So when I tell you I don't have access to the internet, it means that I don't have the connection, right? But if I say I can't use my phone, that's about how I use the application. You need both, okay? Providing someone access to the internet does not help if they can't use a computer. Providing somebody with a computer does not help if they can't use a web browser to access the internet. So access and use are 2 things that we have to take into consideration together. So that's the 3rd thing. Equality, diversity, access and use, and participatory processes. We have to make sure that people from disadvantaged groups can participate in the design of technology. Those are the 4 simple ways of describing it. How we do that is another story. That's a much more complicated affair. So I won't get into that. All right, somebody asked a question about class. Can you make it more clear what's the goal to achieve on Sunday? What exactly we have to submit in terms of the assignment? What you have to submit is, I've labeled it the deliverable. So in the assignment, there's a section of the assignment called the deliverable. That's what you have to submit. It's basically a document that is a short, I can't remember how many words, but a short essay followed by the lists of ideas and values and how they connect to each other. So that's all you have to submit. You can submit it as a document. You can submit the essay as a document, and then you can take a picture of a drawing that you've made and put that in there too if you want. So I think that if you have specific questions after you've submitted, just let me know and I can answer them. Just say, Anthony, is this what you were expecting? And I can tell you yes or no. Yes. Doesn't look like, okay. All right. Next, another question about universal design. This has been so great. I am so glad we were doing it this way. This actually worked out better than I imagined. In my head, I was like, oh no, nobody's going to ask any questions, or the questions are going to be hard for me to answer. But these are really good questions. I can see that you're working on the assignment. All right. Question is, why do we say that universal design is related to the process and the product? Okay, this is why we say that. The word design can mean what something is. Let me see if I can find something on my desk. Yes, a pen, all right? The word design can refer to the shape, the color, the weight, the flexibility, the materials. Design can refer to all these aspects, the characteristics of this pen. So that's the product. Design can also be used as a verb, which is used to describe how this pen is made. So what is the manufacturing process for this pen? Now, when we talk about ICT, design is both the user interface, how the user interface looks, appears, and functions, and it's also about how we create that user interface in all the related technologies. I hope that explains it in a little bit clearer way. Yes. All right. I'm not going to ask the last question because I just wasn't sure how much we would get through. I'm instead going to do a quick poll so I can get your feedback on a few different things. So what I would like for you to do, 4 questions on this poll. It's in Zoom, so if you guys could answer really quick the question, then that would help me get an understanding for what more information you might need in this class. So I've already launched the poll, and I see a few people have already started answering. That's great. So the questions are, do you understand what is due on Sunday? Yes, no, maybe. Do you understand the structure of the course? Yes, somewhat, not at all. What platform would you like to use for the discussion forums? Zoom, Skype, Teams, or none of these? And then how do you feel about the course so far? It's awesome, it's okay, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Hopefully nobody says worst thing that ever happened to me, but I understand if that may be the case for some of you. All right, we got about half of you have rung in. I'm so pleased that so many people are here. We got 39 people in class today. It's brilliant. Okay. I'll give you another minute or two. I would like to get as many people to respond as possible. We got 20 out of 39 of you have responded. we could get a few more, that would be wonderful. I'm going to give you another minute to respond, and then we're going to go to the last poll. And I think I'll go ahead and take out the brief so that we can run back through it so you understand what I'm expecting. All right, that's most of you. All right, so it looks like the majority of you understand what's due on Sunday. That's great. There's a few of you, very small amount, that don't yet. We're going to go over the class brief before the end of class today, just to make sure you're very, very clear. A few of you, maybe. Do you understand the structure of this course? The majority of you do. Some of you, not quite sure, and a few of you, not at all. Let's go through the structure one last time. There will be a meeting every Tuesday and every Thursday at 1800 where we go through the work that you've been doing on the class briefs. There will be a class brief that's posted every Monday for that week. You will have to submit the deliverable from each of the class briefs by Sunday. That's not a hard deadline. The hard deadline is July 1st for all 4 class briefs. I'll grade you based on those class briefs. I hope that explains it. All the learning materials, everything that you need to know for the course will be in the class briefs. The meetings that we have on Tuesday and Thursday will be for this discussion forum. Looks like most everybody wants to use Zoom, so we'll continue with that. Most everybody thinks the course is awesome. A few of you think it's okay, and 2 of you think it's the worst thing that ever happened to you? My word. Well, I'm sorry. We'll try to fix that and make it better for the rest of the semester. All right, I'm ending this poll. I would like to launch one last poll. This is actually a quiz. So I would like you guys to read the questions and answer them to the best of your ability. If you haven't started on the class brief, just guess, just do the best you can based on our conversation already. But this will really help me understand what's your level of comprehension for the work that we're doing so far. So this is a quiz. Good luck. I'm launching the poll now. So the first question in the quiz is universal design is all about, and it gives you multiple choice options. There are, I think, 6 or 7 options. Second question is, in order to create something that is universally designed, I need to, and then there are 5 options. Universal design relates to, third question, universal design relates to which fields? And there are 7 or 8 options. These are all multiple choice. Universal design is all about creating technology that works for, and there are multiple choices there. Think about 10. And do you have to have a disability to benefit from universal design, yes or no? So if I did this correctly, you should be able to select multiple options. If I didn't, then you'll only be able to select one. And if you can only select one, select the best choice you could imagine. You're not being graded for this. It's just for me to understand where the level of understanding is for the course. Make sure that I'm being clear in what we're doing and how we're doing it. We have no one has responded yet. I'm excited to see the first response. Could somebody just tell me whether you're allowed to select multiple options whenever you're answering something? Yes, we can. Okay, thank you, Dario. I appreciate that. That's fabulous. Good. Then it's exactly the way I want it. So choose wisely. Guys are doing great. If you've already finished the quiz, just hold tight. I'm going to save the last 5 minutes of the class to go through the assignment one last time. It shouldn't take too long. And then I want to leave you guys with the rest of the evening to continue your work. Great. Looks like we have 12 out of 38 have responded. So if I could ask everyone to please submit your answers. I'm going to end the polling in about 1 minute. You guys are so smart. I love this. Well done. I can't believe you've already figured all this out. Very, very good job. All right, we're going to give you a few more seconds here, and then I'm going to close the polling. So if you're finishing up, please make your decisions. Submit. You're not being graded. I just need to know where your comprehension is, where your understanding is. I won't go through the results of this poll in this class. What we'll do is I'll publish, we'll go through the poll next class. On Tuesday, we'll run through the questions and I'll explain the answers, which answers are good answers, which answers are not as good, and why. So for now, we'll just leave it at what we have. So I'm ending polling. Great. Good. All right, let's go through this class brief. I'm going to try to clarify as much as possible for you guys so that everything is very, very clear. And I saw there was a couple of questions in the chat, I think maybe. There's some messages at least. Let's see what there was. Guilherme says he's lost. What is the task now? He's been away for a few minutes. There's no task now, Guilherme. Just take a look at the screen. We're going to go through the class brief. And then if you have any questions, you can follow up afterwards. And then somebody asked, is it possible to see the results of the quiz? Sure, I can post the results of the quiz. I just need to make sure they're anonymous, but I think they are. I'll post it to Dropbox after we finish today. I want to go through the class brief now, and then we're going to wrap everything up with a bow, and I'm going to tell you guys to have a great weekend, and we'll go from there. All right, so the class brief, this one's a little bit special because it goes over the basic structure of the class at the beginning. So for those of you that still wasn't sure about the class, this is where you can get information about the class. You can also find information about the class in the email that I sent at the beginning of this of our work together. Then the activities that I want you to do as part of the class brief start with this a series of brain activation exercises. There are 3 videos, short videos, like 5-7 minutes each, and then 1 article to read. Now I put 25 minutes to read the article. That might have been a little bit, I might not have been very nice to do that. It might take you a little bit longer to read that article. And that's okay. Do your best. Try to understand what the issues are that are important around universal design, and then make sure that you bring questions to class so that we can talk about them. Then there are 2 video lectures I want you to watch. They're each about 20 minutes long. One is a presentation that I believe I did, and then another is a presentation by someone else. Those are both really useful for giving you basic understanding of what universal design is. Now, then we move into the assignment part. Now, the assignment part focuses again on putting universal design, the ideas around universal design, into your own value systems, your own beliefs. And we start with trying to understand what a belief statement is. Now, belief statements are really, really important for how we approach our jobs, our work, the things that are important to us. So there's a 30-minute reading about belief statements. And then there's a 15-minute, 2 short podcasts that give you good examples of what a belief statement kind of deals with. And then there's the exercise, what you're actually going to do, the activity behind the deliverable. And that is to take 5 minutes and brainstorm 10 beliefs that you hold. Each belief should be 1 or 2 words. So if I were to do this, I would say things like equality, family, eating healthy, diversity, innovation. Those are the kinds of things I would put. These are things that I care about. These are things that are important to me. Then take 15 minutes and rewrite each of those kind of 1 or 2 words into a full statement. And that statement has to begin with, I believe. So I believe that everyone should have equal opportunities to live their life, right? So equality is one. That statement is a different thing. Statement is a longer form of that. Then take 10 minutes and write 15 different ideas that come to mind when you think about universal design. It could be things like disability. It could be usability. It could be some of the issues we talked about in the Q&A whenever we talked about inclusive design, right? Anything inclusion could be an idea. So write down 15 ideas about universal design. Then rewrite each of those ideas in a form of a statement. Universal design is about ensuring that people with disabilities can use technology. Universal design is about creating technology that is inclusive, that sort of thing. Then take 10 minutes and divide a sheet of paper into 2 pieces. Write your ideas on one side, your beliefs on the other. Take 10 minutes, just set yourself a timer and just look at that piece of paper and think about how those ideas around universal design might relate to your beliefs. Then take a few minutes and just draw arrows that connect. This idea is related to this belief. This idea is related to this belief. This belief is related to these 3 ideas, all right? Then take 20 minutes and write a short essay, 100 words, that answers those 3 questions. Why do you think your beliefs are important for understanding universal design? So I believe in equality. That's important for me for understanding universal design, because universal design is all about ensuring everyone can use technology. Then answer the question, how do you think your belief could be translated into a universal design practice? Well, I believe in equality, so I would translate that into practice by saying that I believe, or I believe that as many people as possible should be involved in creating technology, that there should be a large group of very diverse people that will work to create technology. And then what will I do to put that belief into practice? Well, I will try to work with as many people from as many different backgrounds as possible whenever I'm creating a new piece of technology. So that's all you have to do. Do the best you can, all right? This is just the first exercise, and it's just an exercise to get us all thinking in the same way same frame of mind. So you're going to take that document, you're going to take your essay, and then either a picture of that piece of paper that you've written with the 2 columns, or if you've done it in a document, just submit 2 documents, or copy and paste them both into the same document, and just submit the document called Deliverable 1 in the Dropbox folder, in the right Dropbox folder. I hope that answers the questions, and I hope that clarifies things. We're 2 minutes past the hour, so I apologize for keeping you guys a little bit late. I reckon you'll survive. We'll try to end on time every day we have class, every day we have this discussion forum. I want to wish each and every one of you to have a wonderful weekend. Please reach out to me on WhatsApp or email if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to help. Bring your questions next Tuesday. The assignment's due on Sunday, but it's okay if you submit it later, as long as everything is submitted by July 1st. Sunday is just the deadline to kind of keep up with the class. If you have to submit Monday or Tuesday after we've had more discussions, after we've had more chances to answer your questions, that's okay. All right, you won't fail. Good luck. I'm here for you when you need me. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again on Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
teacher. See you on the
Thank you.
next
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, teacher. Thanks.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.